Ready for you.
What did you get when in a player like Greenway?
Well, I'm excited about the obvious, which is the physical attributes. You know, a 6'6", talented power forward at a great age with experience. Jordan's a player that Donnie has a long history with. Coached him at the NTDP. Knows him very well as a player and person. But as I watched him very closely over the last number of weeks, I think we have a player here that we don't have currently. A player that he adds physicality, grit, is a presence. He can hold on to pucks. He's talented where he can make plays and get up and down the ice, but also with that frame and his ability to hang on to pucks and just have a physical presence, I just think it's an important addition for us that something I've been thinking about for a while and was hoping to add.
You mentioned whatever, maybe a week ago, about asking Kyle if he thought that they were getting pushed around a little bit. It seems like that was an emphasis with both additions here. Did you notice that was starting to creep into your game?
Well, what I noticed wasn't that we were getting pushed around, but the teams were certainly trying to bully us. I don't think there's any way around it when you watch our games. A number of the teams, especially going after our top players and just game after game, targeting them, it was clear. Now, I think what our guys did was fantastic in terms of standing up for themselves, for each other, competing, not backing down, not giving up, 1 inch. I didn't see that at all, which is a great sign. But what we came into this deadline really focusing on, and honestly, I get up every single day thinking about how do we improve this roster? What do we need to help our group? And, the focus became how can we add without, taking away from the current team, and these guys have put themselves in the position we're in, so you wanted to kind of balance all that, and then also balance, if you add, what are you adding? Which for me, there was as we targeted a forward defenseman, these attributes we were looking for, but also players that can grow with us. To me, it didn't really make a lot of sense to be going down the UFA market right now for rentals. More focused on players that we felt could help us today as a team, in their individual skill set, but also can grow with us, and that without taking away. So I think we were able to accomplish that, and really excited about Riley and Jordan for sure.
Kevin, how does a player like that open things up more for the skill guys that you do have? I mean, I'm trying to think of a guy like you looking at this roster, a guy who's going to make an opposing defenseman sweat on a forecheck, knowing it's going to be a long night. The battles in front of the net, the corners, that sort of a thing. How does he open time and space maybe for other?
Well, I guess the simplest way to say it, Adam, is like there's certain players that when they're on the ice, everyone's aware, and I put Jordan in that category. He can skate, and he can make plays, but he's got the presence physically that people are aware when he's on the ice. Now, what we're building towards, and you've heard me talk a lot about this, is setting this franchise up for sustainable success. And ultimately, when we get in the playoffs, whether that's this year or into the coming years, a player like that, especially in a playoff series where, game in and game out, is they become valuable. So that's part of the thought process. But, you need talent to go, with all of that, and that's one of the things that I really like about Jordan. He can make plays, and he's a talented hockey player too.
When you were assessing, Kevin, what you wanted to do at this deadline, how much were, just to name 2 prospects, Savoy and Kulik, on your mind in terms of, you've said it before, you don't want to block players. You didn't do it with Paterka and Gwen, and obviously it's worked out the way that.
Yeah, they're very much at the top of my mind, So you guys have heard me talk about it, but I think we've backed it up with the way we've handled things, is that we don't want to ever rush players, but we're not afraid to, when we believe a player's ready, to make sure they're here. We did that with Quinn Paterka, Krebs, you can even go to Samuelson last year, and on and on. So we put those guys right in the category as they were non-starters in conversations, and believe me, I'm really excited about the prospect pool we have, and so is the rest of the league, because there were a lot of questions about guys, and not just those two, but others. And I think that for me is if you go back a couple years, what we were really missing. When you're trying to start to build your team and your franchise, and then you're trying to start having conversations, it's challenging if you don't have assets. But those two in particular, I think what Yuri's done in the American League at 18 years old is pretty special and very rare. And Matt is just he's a Sabre. He's our type of player. The kid's just a puck hound, relentless, plays at top speed, and just that's why we took him so high.
Kevin, when you look at the mold here, I think of Greenway, 26, he's got term. You've openly talked about this before. Is that one of the designs you wanted out of this deadline, to get another guy like that to add?
Yes, exactly. We're evolving as a team. We're growing. I love, to think about 2.5 years ago, and where we were, and kind of the blueprint that we kind of started to really have to think about of what we were going to turn this franchise. And there's been a lot of really positive steps, and I think our team has taken a huge step right now, but you can't fast forward to go to certain places. We have to do things intelligently, really assess what the right and wrong types of decisions are. And Jordan in particular, having 2 more years, so you're getting him now for the rest of this year, plus 2, at least, at a great age, right in your mid-20s when you're in your prime, but also experience. So, I said that about Tyson Jost, when we got him, a young player developing, but also 300 games of experience. I think that helps, our group. So it was exactly the type of fit we were looking for. And these deals aren't easy to make. I mean, but to do it without giving up one of our younger top prospects, or something we weren't comfortable in terms of the draft, was a challenge, but we were able to get it done.
This is a unique situation for you. Your first 2 years as GM, you were really a seller. But what's it like to be a buyer? Just that experience, something different, trying to add to your team.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's I don't know if I can explain this the right way, but I'll try. I don't really think about being a buyer or seller. I think about what we're on a path trying to do here, and how we're trying to set this organization up for sustainable success, and how we're trying to build this around, elite level talent and character and people that buy in to what we're doing. So selling, buying, it's part of it. And I think the difference is when you're in a situation like we're in today, you are setting acquisition cost parameters, and then you're working really hard to try to get these deals done, taking the emotion out, and just staying methodical and intentional on how you're doing things. So I don't know if it answers the question, but it just gives you maybe insight to how I try to operate. I want to just say to, Sam Ventura, Mark Jakubowski, Jason Carmanos, Jeremiah Crow, like, these guys are in the trenches with me in every one of these decisions, and they're really important in how I operate, because, they bring different skill sets to the table, and then also ultimately have Donnie as well, and just kind of going back and forth. So none of these are made in a vacuum, but I can tell you a lot of work goes into it, and I feel we moved our franchise forward today without compromising on things we were not willing to do.
When it comes to Jordan, Don Granato has a good history with him. Does he feel, when you chatted with him and talked to him about him, does he feel he can get more out of him?
Yeah, it's exactly why we did it. For me, first of all, I have a ton of trust and faith in Don Granato, in his coaching ability, his one of his greatest strengths is his passion for the players and the relationships that he builds. And he was pounding the table on this one and saying, I know that there is more, to this player. And I believe that if we acquire him and we get him in our environment and the way Donnie wants to handle the certain, however our system tweaks, all that stuff, he goes, I believe that we're getting a really important hockey player, And so I put a lot of stock in that. And I just think that's, in my position, as you've heard me say before, I have to ask a lot of questions. I have to challenge. It's easy to say you want to do something, but, there's a lot of, well, why? Tell me what this means. Well, how is it going to work? And where is it going to go? And I ask all those questions. But I did put a lot of stock in Donnie's past with Jordan and what he believes he can do moving forward.
Well, Don, obviously, there's proof, right? We look at Tage Thompson, what's happened with him, Rasmus, and there are other examples, Kevin, in your organization. Maybe if I could just dive a little deeper into that conversation you had with Don, what does he feel this kid needs to get by or kind of overcome? Is it intangible? Is it motor?
Well, and Donnie would probably do a better job of answering the question tomorrow for you. But what I can tell you is not every player is coached the same way. And where Donnie is incredibly talented, and he's talented in many ways, but one of the talents, in my opinion, Donnie possesses is nuances within psychology of handling his players. Which players need to be really pushed, which players need to be hugged a little bit, which players don't even want to talk to you, which players want to talk to you every day. Those are things that Donnie has a really good feel for. And the one thing that he adamantly talked to me about was, I believe I know how to coach this player and get the most out of him. And, this is a player that when you watch him and you see the frame and the talent and the ability, we think there's upside. And you guys know from listening to me many times is I'm a big believer in trying to go forward with players that you think they have a higher ceiling. Whether that's signing players to long deals or acquiring players, we believe that maybe they're here right now, but we believe they can get here. And that's something that I personally think a lot about.
Kevin, you talked about not wanting to fast forward things, and the standings kind of put you in the position, whether you want to or not, you kind of do, because you're in this thing pretty deep. Where do you feel this team is right now in the wake of the last two games? And they need to get healthier for one thing, but what can get you over the top and get you in, do you think?
I love where we're at right now. We've played 60 games, I think now, 4 points back of the youngest team in the NHL who comes to the rink. They love each other in that room. They love playing here. So that is so awesome to see. What I want to see our guys do is just go and just be them. Play fearlessly, earn everything they're going to get. And the big message, and I talked to the team this morning, the big message that I believe that I wanted them to hear was our biggest growth, in my opinion, over the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months is going to come internally. It's our own players developing and even taking bigger steps. And yeah, we're going to work to round and add to the roster and do what we can do. But I am so excited for these guys to have this opportunity to feel what it like coming to the rink in March and playing these really important games and learning. And tough game last night, but waking up this morning and realizing that we're in a really good spot. So let's go to the next one. And that's part of maturing, and that happens when you get in the playoffs. You lose a really tough game in overtime, and nobody feels sorry for you. You better be ready to go the next night. So our guys are learning that, and I just I'm really passionate about the people in that locker room. It honestly, it gets emotional sometimes because I know what it takes to win in this league, and I know we have it. And now I want to just believe in these guys and let them go do it. That's exciting for me.
There was so much talk, Kevin, about a particular defenseman on the trade market. You acquire Riley Stillman. He's got another year under his contract. is this a situation where Riley, he's in a different situation in Florida in particular, he played more minutes, he was playing 20 minutes a game over the next 6 weeks, and even, you know, is this an opportunity to really evaluate him as somebody who can play in a bigger role? So when it is time for the summer, you have the draft and there's opportunity to maybe look at other players that it's an evaluation period, so you can have a better idea, okay, maybe we need this to add to that core.
You changed course in your question.
Well-
I was gonna say, okay. So Riley in particular, you mean?
Yeah, well, because, so where I'm coming at with this is when that one particular defenseman who is on the market is obviously someone who plays
Yeah.
a first or second pairing role. Is Riley somebody you can really give an opportunity to and see, okay, is he somebody who could fill a bigger role in our team? So maybe this summer we don't have to go out and get that,
Yeah.
a guy who could play the sort of minutes that
I see.
Dalton or Power can play.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'll answer it a couple ways. I think the first part is the Riley piece. You know, he's a player that I've watched for a while, and I like a couple things off the ice. What I like about Riley, he's a big, strong kid who's eager to get better. He fits that. He checks those boxes that we look for. So start with that. On the ice, I believe that he brings an element that we need a little bit, just a hardness to him. He does everything aggressive. He's certainly not afraid to, when the play's there, to finish a check. And he's going to certainly stick up for himself, his teammates. You know, do I think there's an upside to him? Absolutely. I think he's 24 years old and he's just finding his way. You know, I do believe that he has the ability to improve and grow. So absolutely open to that. When it comes to, like, you know, the other scenario, or kind of adding, you know, you weigh a lot of different things. What I can tell you is we had a lot of discussions right down to the end. And what happens in my experience is not all trades, I would say, are trade options are created equal. It's not always apples to apples. You know, when we went through this, we got Alex Tuck, Peyton Krebs, you know, the 2 draft picks, and we were assessing in that situation everyone across the league. And some looked better than others, but you're giving your wish list of, you know, and it could look like this. So I think what's important is, you know, being in those conversations, and then for me weighing acquisition cost. And I think what's important for people to understand is that it's different for every team, you know, and we'll continue to find ways to look at the options to get better. That, you know, some of these conversations that we had over this last month just roll into the off season. You park it, it didn't happen, and then you go. So there's a lot of that goes on too. But so we'll evaluate our own situation, and we'll continue to look if there's something that makes sense in the off season.
So we can interpolate from all that clearly Ottawa wanted more from you than Arizona wanted more from you than they took from Ottawa, right?
Your words. But I think that's a pretty. Am I allowed to say yes? Yes.
But in general terms, it sounds like teams were more interested in your young players than draft picks, where maybe for another team, they were more interested in draft picks. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly the point I just made. You have to be careful of whether it's, you know, as a fan or anyone just saying, well, if this team traded for this, then we should have done it. You know, that's not the way it typically works. Just, you know, and there are, of course, in the conversations there is a line that we would draw in a situation like that as we got to that spot that we are not going over. And we're not in a situation where we feel that we are backs against the wall, desperate. I am thrilled to death that there's an absolute arms race going on in the East over the last couple of weeks, and just there's high prices, and I get it. But, you know, I think that we wanted to be really careful of that too. But yeah, I think what you said is exactly right, and we always are going to be in conversations, especially when it comes to good hockey players, because I think that's important. But you know, I think from our standpoint, sticking with our plan, doing it the right way, what makes sense for us is what we had to do.
How many of these asks are teams trying to cash in on the fact that this team hasn't been in the playoffs in 12 years and saying, trying to find out maybe how desperate you are to end that.
Yes. Yes, there is a lot of that has gone on in the past couple weeks, and candidly, I get it. What you cannot do in my position is get emotional, desperate, or give any sense around, to your counterparts that you have to do something, because you can make mistakes or get taken advantage of. Now, I promise you that I give my colleagues the same answer that I've said to you guys. We have done a deep dive and learned from what's gone on in the past. It's reality, but we're not living there, and we can't make decisions because of the past how many years. We can't change course and make those decisions. I understand, but I also, it's why I get choked up, because I believe so much in these guys in this room that I don't feel that that's something we need to dwell on. But we've thought a lot about it, learned from what's gone on, but we're not going to live there.
I just want to ask you, just listening to you describe all this, Kevin, and kind of looking at your relatively short tenure as a general manager in the NHL, and there was so much that was made of your inexperience when you started out in this role. I guess, you've been battle tested in the sense of you kind of waited in the Eichel trade that you just talked about until you got the pieces that you wanted. And if there was ever a situation where this franchise would appear to be giving up leverage, because of the politics of what was going on there, is that something maybe you're conditioned to now in your evolution as a GM?
Yeah, I don't know. Yes. That's a specific example of, to me, it was franchise-changing decision where there is just no way we can compromise on what we felt we had to do to move our franchise forward. And I believed it in my core, and that's why we did what we did. It was challenging, no doubt, but I still think part of why I'm so fortunate to have this job is incredible trust from Terry Pagula, and faith in that he believes in what we're doing here, and the people around me, and by the way, the players that I talk to and ask them questions. How are you feeling? What do you think is going on? What do we need? All of that plays a role, but I really try to stay in the moment and stick with what our plan is, and it's hard. These can be stressful times and not a lot of sleep and intense conversations, and it's also what makes it so enjoyable, because this is an incredible opportunity that we have in front of us.
You made an understandable deal for Portillo, given the situation we all know. Where do you think your goalie depth performance is now? Will you look to upgrade that? And given that you didn't, where are you in that area right now?
Yeah, I was really, really hoping to come into this deadline and make a deal for Portillo. You guys know the situation. It's became clear to me that I was told this was not a market that he felt he wanted to play in, and didn't necessarily see a pathway to the NHL. And you guys understand, we want players that want to be here, and we want players that want to compete every day to be National Hockey League players. So it was a really important to try to find a way to recoup that asset, which fortunately we were able to do. And it's a great deal for LA. They're getting a really talented goalie who's a very good prospect. So I had a feeling that we could end up there as over the last few weeks. Really feel good about what's going on with UPL, just where he is, where he was a year ago, where he was in October, and where he is today. He's maturing, he's growing, he's having ups and downs like all players do. It just gets highlighted even more when you're a goaltender. It's just the reality. Right. But so excited about him, and you guys know how I feel about Craig, and what he's done for our organization. Comrie, I think's bounced back from his injury and started to really, find himself. And we'll see how this shakes out over the next few weeks. But and then of course Devin Levi, and that'll be a really, really important piece for us. I want to be respectful to Devin. He's in an important time in their college season, and but we'll have those conversations at the right time. But I feel good. And then obviously we drafted a goalie last year. It's a timeline, and those things take a while. But big picture, I feel good. And I was really happy to get the asset coming back to recoup that for Eric.
As far as
Take two more.
just some other housekeeping, you traded Rasmus Asplund, did he just get a change of scenery? Did he ask out, and as, you swapped AHL defenseman?
Yeah, on the defense side of things, just a little bit of a change of scenery for Prisky to go out. That was kind of one of those. Was looking for maybe a different opportunity, and Jason Kamanos, I thought, did a nice job. Really working around the league to find that for him. Rasmus Asplund, I can't say enough good things about the human being. I understand it was a challenging season for him. Just kind of, he had a really good year last year, kind of just, out of the lineup, and it's hard. So I really was hoping to do the right thing for him, but also, we wanted to at least find a way to get an asset back, that we were able to do. So, no, he was a good pro. He just, I just spoke to him. The trade call just happened minutes before he walked in, and just spoke to him, and he was just really appreciative. And he said, "I can't wait to see you guys in the playoffs. It's going to be fun to watch." So it just gives you a little insight of what a special person he is.
Why did you sign Hauser? I mean,
Purely just in case of a worst case scenario where you just get depleted, that you have another NHL goaltender, and we don't have a contract issue. That was part of it. Some teams you're at 48 or 49 contracts, and then you got to be really careful adding one more. But we didn't have that issue at all. So we just it's why Mark Jakubowski doesn't sleep at night, because he thinks of every possible scenario.
And you've experienced those worst case scenarios in the past, so.
And we don't want to do it again. So, but thanks everyone. I hope you get out of here before the storm hits, and appreciate through the year all the different conversations we've had. I don't know when you'll see me, but do this again. But hopefully it's with an exciting smile on my face. So thank you everyone. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kevin.